I still vividly remember the scene from that morning. It was a quiet morning in Westchester County. The soft sunlight streaming through the windows of the grand white mansion danced on the expensive Persian rug in the living room. The shadows of the furniture cast by the morning light silently projected on the walls, as if guarding the mansion's secrets. "Sophia, it's dangerous to run around like that." My daughter, a 3-year-old with golden curls, turned at my voice. "Mommy, look," she said with an angelic smile, twirling in her new ballet shoes. Her movements were like a butterfly dancing in a spring garden. Among our family living in this mansion, Sophia's smile was the only genuine, pure light. Her movements were so graceful and elegant that I sometimes wondered if she had invisible wings on her small back. I am Abigail Green, 34 years old. Until 5 years ago, I was a maid in this house. Now I hold the title of a madam, but my essence hasn't changed. I'm still the same girl with long brown hair and gentle brown eyes who grew up in a poor family in Texas. My father passed away from overworking at a factory, and my mother still works tirelessly as a waitress. When I got a job at the Green household through a maid service company right after graduating high school, I never dreamed it would change my life so dramatically. While doing my morning routine of vacuuming, I sometimes pause to look up at the portraits hanging on the walls. They are the successive heads of the Green family. Their solemn gazes still make me feel like an outsider. Especially in front of my late father-in-law's portrait hanging in the second-floor hallway, I always find myself stopping. "Abigail, I'd like Darjeeling first flush for this morning's tea. And serve it with the scones that arrived yesterday." At the voice from upstairs, I instinctively straightened my back. Mother-in-law Eleanor, 68 years old. Born into a distinguished Boston family, she always keeps her gray hair tightly pulled back and embodies perfectionism and class consciousness. Her posture is always straight, and every movement exudes elegance. However, behind her eyes always lurks a cold vigilance. "Yes, Mother." As I responded, I remembered that fateful day 5 years ago, when I slipped on the stairs while cleaning. Carrying a heavy bucket, I thought I couldn't avoid falling, but in that moment, strong arms caught me. When I turned around, there stood Nathan, who was then the heir to this house. "Are you all right, Abigail? Are you hurt?" His voice was truly gentle then. My 45-year-old husband, though well-groomed in appearance, has an indecisive personality heavily influenced by his mother. Even while bearing the heavy responsibility as president of Green Construction, he can't hide his inner weakness. His deep blue eyes are filled with kindness, but also harbor an inexplicable loneliness. From that day on, we grew secretly close. I would secretly bring coffee to him when he worked late, or arrange accidental meetings on holidays. It was like a fairy tale, like living in a dream. In his study, he would tell me about architecture, and sometimes I would talk about my hometown in Texas. Through these casual conversations, we began to understand each other. However, when our relationship came to light, Eleanor's opposition was fierce. The words exchanged in the mansion's study still burn in my ears. "This is an outrageous misalliance. It concerns the honor of the Green family. We have supported Boston's upper society for generations." Eleanor's angry voice echoed among the heavy furniture in the study. Still, Nathan unusually defied his mother and decided to marry me. Behind his determination might have been a secret desire to escape his mother's control. The wedding was held in a historic church in New York. The guests looked at me in my white wedding dress with cold stares. I can't forget those stares even now. To the upper-class people, I was just a woman who made up the misalliance. My hands trembled slightly even when cutting the wedding cake. 5 years have passed. Though we live a wealthy life on the surface, my position in this house remains unstable. My relationship with the servants, my former colleagues, is also delicate. I who was once in the same position must now give orders as madam. Each time, I feel apologetic and uncomfortable. Especially in the eyes of the elderly housekeepers who have served the Green family for many years, I can see their undisguised dissatisfaction. My husband is consumed by work and barely present at home. Even when we do see each other, he acts like a stranger when his mother Eleanor is around. Even on weekends, he's often absent, playing golf at the Westchester Country Club or socializing with business partners. During such times, I often spend time alone with Sophia in this too large mansion. In all of this, my only solace is Sophia's presence. Her friendly personality and smiles so similar to mine are like a light in this oppressive mansion. Watching my daughter grow day by day makes me feel there's meaning to this life. Mommy, are you taking grandmother's tea? I want to come too. Sophia's voice brings me back to reality. She approaches her grandmother without fear, with pure affection. Sometimes this even softens Eleanor's stern expression. I nodded silently and headed to the kitchen. While taking out Eleanor's favorite Wedgwood cup from the luxury cabinet, I sighed internally. The elegant floral pattern on the porcelain seemed to symbolize this house's glamorous surface. How long would this life continue? And where was our family headed under this pressure? Not knowing that an unexpected answer was approaching fast. Outside the window, the spring sunlight illuminated the garden flowers, announcing the start of a peaceful day. It was like the calm before an approaching storm. The invitation to Green Construction's 10th anniversary party arrived at the end of a peaceful spring. The gold-embossed letters on thick quality paper gleamed in the sunlight. A 7-day luxury cruise around the Caribbean. As I held the invitation, I felt an indescribable anxiety. It will be a wonderful cruise. When I turned at Eleanor's voice, she wore an unusually peaceful expression. However, something lurking in her eyes sent a chill down my spine. Recently, she had seemed to be plotting something. I would hear her talking on the phone late at night, or calling her secretary more frequently than usual. Mommy, I'm scared of boats. Sophia clung to the hem of my skirt. Recently, she had been having dreams about boats and crying in the middle of the night. It's okay, Mommy will always be with you. While embracing my daughter, I said this as if trying to convince myself. But the heavy premonition in my heart wouldn't go away. The oasis of the seas, docked at Miami port, was like a floating palace. Its massive hull, over 340 meters long, gleamed in the morning sun. Passengers dressed in high-brand suits and dresses boarded one after another. Our cabin was a suite room on the top floor. The spacious balcony offered a panoramic view of the emerald green sea. However, in that luxurious space, new trials awaited me. Abigail, what is that way of holding your knife and fork? At dinner in the ship's restaurant. Eleanor's stern gaze missed none of my movements. I'm sorry. And that outfit? It's not suitable for a party. As a Green family wife, you need to acquire more elegance. Nathan just silently listened to such exchanges. He was busy with meetings with company executives and had almost no time to spend with family. On the third day at dusk, we were having dinner at the restaurant on the top deck. Under the orange-tinted sky, luxurious course dishes lined the table. However, contrary to the gorgeous atmosphere, a heavy air hung over us. Sophia, straighten your back. Eat more elegantly. What kind of upbringing is this? Eleanor's criticism was aimed at us like arrows, one after another. Sophia clung to me with a frightened expression. And then it happened suddenly. Poverty is not allowed in this family. Eleanor suddenly raised her voice. In her hand was a document. I learned through investigation that your family has gone bankrupt. Your lower-class blood is polluting our lineage. Mother, in front of Sophia. My voice was trembling. Curious eyes from surrounding tables were directed at us. That's when it happened. Look, Sophia. The sunset is beautiful. Shall we go see it together? Nathan suddenly spoke to our daughter in a gentle voice. There was something unnaturally sweet in his voice. He stood up and lifted the trembling Sophia. Papa, I'm scared. Sophia whispered in a small voice, but Nathan pretended not to hear and walked toward the deck railing. Here, Papa will hold you up so you can see better. In that moment, my spine froze. My husband's eyes held a cold light I had never seen before. As if foreseeing what was about to happen. Nathan, that's dangerous. Before I could finish my scream, it happened. Ah! I slipped. Nathan slipped, as if calculated, and leaned against the railing while holding Sophia. With that momentum, Sophia's body separated from his arms and flew through the air. Sophia! My scream echoed over the twilight sea. Sophia's small body disappeared into the orange-colored water surface. This is terrible. An accident. Someone help. The deck instantly became chaotic. My hands slipped. How could this? Nathan appeared to be distraught with skilled acting. However, in his eyes, there was certainly something like satisfaction. Eleanor also showed seemingly acted distress, saying, how could such an accident? Life preserver. Someone get a life preserver. I ran around the deck screaming desperately. The hem of my expensive evening dress got in the way, making me stumble several times. But I couldn't stop. A child has fallen into the sea. Someone, get a life jacket. Amidst the passengers' agitated voices, Nathan knelt there, covering his face with his hands. Perfect acting of regret. However, his eyes peeking through the gaps between his fingers seemed to be calmly observing the situation. Eleanor sat collapsed in her chair, pressing her white-gloved hand to her chest. Surrounding passengers rushed to worry about her. Among all this, I didn't miss the slight smile that appeared on her thinly parted lips. The ship's announcement rang out. Emergency situation. Rescue team, urgently assemble on the top deck. Repeat. Uniformed crew members gathered on the deck one after another. They quickly organized a rescue operation. However, as the sea surface grew darker moment by moment, my despair only deepened. Please tell us the details of the accident. The ship's security officer who rushed over began questioning Nathan. I tried to show my daughter the sunset, got too close to the railing, slipped. Nathan's voice trembled and broke off. Perfect acting of a grief-stricken father. But as I watched him explain to the security officer, something inside me froze like ice. Every word he spoke seemed too calculated. Sir, we'll need to create an accident report. A security officer approached Eleanor as well. She was now playing the role of a distraught grandmother perfectly. Clutching her expensive shawl, her shoulders trembling. Like she had practiced beforehand. And I was gradually beginning to understand the terrifying plan behind this accident. My husband's unnatural kindness, my mother-in-law's meaningful attitude, and Sophia's anxiety before departure, everything was connecting. This was no accident. They had planned to eliminate my beloved daughter. Floodlights installed on the deck illuminated each wave. The sound of rescue boats' engines could be heard from the darkness. I clung to the railing, desperately scanning the sea surface. Please. Sophia. Through tears that distorted my vision, I continued to whisper my daughter's name like a prayer. And my whole body trembled with the premonition of the long battle that would begin from this moment. The nighttime sea was dark like spilled ink. Several rescue boats circled around the cruise ship, their searchlights illuminating the waves. 4 hours had already passed since the search began. Still nothing found. I made my 10th inquiry to the rescue team leader. My throat was already nearly dry, my voice hoarse. We'll try expanding the search area. I could only nod silently at the leader's words. Leaning against the deck railing, I continued to stare at the dark sea. Inside the ship, Nathan and my mother-in-law were waiting in a separate room, accompanied by security guards. Their acting was beginning to show cracks. That's when it happened. This is the hope. We've discovered a suspicious lifeboat. Coordinates are. A crackling voice echoed from the ship's radio. It was a communication from a fishing boat. Confirmation from nearby police boat on patrol for illegal fishing. Response from the lifeboat. High possibility of survivors. In that moment, my heart leaped. Heading there now. All rescue boats, urgently proceed to designated coordinates. The cruise ship's searchlights all changed direction at once, illuminating the designated area. There it is. Someone shouted. In the darkness, a cruise ship lifeboat could be seen floating. And something small seemed to be moving inside it. Sophia. I cried out involuntarily. The police boat approached the lifeboat first. When the flashlight beam illuminated inside the lifeboat, what I saw was my daughter, soaking wet but sitting firmly in the boat. Mommy, help. At the faint voice, large tears spilled from my eyes. The few minutes until Sophia was rescued by the police boat and returned to the cruise ship felt like an eternity. Young lady, you did very well. When the police officer carried Sophia, wrapped in a blanket, onto the deck, I felt all strength leave my body. Sophia. I rushed over and held my daughter tight. Her small body was cold and trembling, but I could feel her definite heartbeat. "Mommy. Papa." Papa tried to. As Sophia began to speak in a trembling voice, noisy voices started to be heard from the other side of the deck. "We've confirmed the security camera footage. There's no doubt." The ship's security officer's stern voice rang out. "Nathan Green, Eleanor Green. You are both under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder." Multiple uniformed officers put handcuffs on Nathan and my mother-in-law. The masks of their acting fell from their expressions. "This is wrong. It was an accident." Nathan's desperate excuses were futile as he was seized by officers and led away. "How dare we be treated like this?" Eleanor's voice had completely lost its previous elegance. The following weeks passed like a storm. The incident was widely reported, and the courthouse was filled with media every day. Calling Abigail Green to the witness stand. When my name was called in court, I felt my spine freeze. However, seeing my mother watching from the gallery and Sophia being held by shelter staff, I gathered my courage. "Please tell us in detail what happened on the deck that day." To the prosecutor's question, I slowly but surely began my testimony. About the days on the cruise ship, Eleanor's harassment, and the events of that fateful night. From the witness stand, I could clearly see Nathan and Eleanor in the defendant's seats. The two who were once full of dignity now hung their heads dejectedly. Security camera footage was played in court. The footage from multiple angles on the deck clearly showed that Nathan's actions were no accident. The defendants intentionally put a young child in danger. The prosecutor's voice echoed in the courtroom. And they tried to make their actions appear as an accident. However, the security camera footage and testimony from over a dozen witnesses prove this was a planned crime. The trial lasted for months. During that time, Sophia and I stayed in a safe place under a victim protection program. My mother also came to support us. Defendants, please rise. On the day of the verdict, the courtroom was filled with tense anticipation. This court sentences the defendant Nathan Green to 15 years in prison. The defendant Eleanor Green is sentenced to 7 years in prison as an accomplice. When the judge's voice rang out, I quietly closed my eyes. It was over. And it was also the beginning of a new life. Holding Sophia's small hand, I was thinking. After overcoming this ordeal, we would surely find new happiness. 3 months have passed since then. In my mother's house in Texas, I watched Sophia's sleeping face. Why my daughter was able to return alive that night, the reason became clear a week after the incident. The place where Nathan threw Sophia happened to be directly above where the lifeboats were stored. She fell onto an old lifeboat from the impact of being thrown. The lifeboat, whose fixings had loosened with age, came loose from its weakened restraints from the impact and fell into the sea. Sophia had landed inside the boat and drifted with the waves. And fortunately, a police boat and fishing vessel on a legal fishing patrol were circulating nearby. The captain became suspicious of a lifeboat drifting in an unusual position and immediately went to check. The truth of the incident turned out to be simple. During interrogation, Nathan confessed everything. He had been completely controlled by his mother Eleanor since childhood. Living a life where perfection was constantly demanded as the heir to the Green family. For him, marriage to me might have been a secret act of rebellion. However, that rebellion didn't last long. Eleanor repeatedly expressed contempt for me, someone of different social status, every day. She particularly persisted in condemning my family's poverty. And finally, she said, that child's lower-class blood is polluting the Green family. Yes, it was all born from simple class prejudice and hatred, and actions of madness stemming from absolute obedience to his mother. We can't entrust the future of the Green family to a child raised by a woman with no money or education. Eleanor continued to assert this, pushing her mentally fragile son to the edge. Finally, Nathan completely surrendered to his mother's control and decided to sacrifice his own daughter. Now, I work at a mother-child support facility while starting a new life. Sophia has started attending a local daycare and is gradually regaining her smile. Mommy, are we never going back to that house? Sometimes Sophia asks this. No, we won't go back. From now on, we'll live near Grandma, just you and me. She nods with relief at my answer. Yes, we no longer need a glamorous life or keeping up appearances. We just need to live honestly with the ones we love. My mother visits every holiday, bringing homemade food. Abby, this is good enough. Your real happiness is in things like this. The smell of my mother's cooking from the kitchen brings back nostalgia. Yes, this is what a real family is. Outside the window, the sun sets peacefully. Life in that mansion now feels like a distant dream. But that's okay. Our new life has just begun, with modest but certain happiness.